In a distant future, humanity was no longer alone in the universe. For centuries, humans had been part of an intergalactic council that governed thousands of species across countless galaxies. This council was supposed to bring peace and cooperation, but lately, tensions between humans and other members were growing stronger. The council's rules often favored older, more powerful species, leaving humans feeling ignored and undervalued. Daniel Carter, a young diplomat from Earth, found himself caught in the middle of these rising tensions. He worked at the Council's central hub on Illyria 7, a massive space station filled with towering buildings, glowing streets, and representatives from all corners of the galaxy. Every day, Daniel attended meetings where human concerns were brushed aside by the Council's leaders. They acted as if humanity was still new to the galactic stage, even though humans had contributed much to the Council's success. Daniel wasn't the only one frustrated. His sister, Rachel Monroe, was a scientist working on advanced terraforming technology back on Earth. Terraforming allowed barren planets to become habitable, and Rachel's work was vital for expanding human colonies. But lately, she had started receiving strange messages. Encrypted files arrived in her inbox late at night, hinting at something big, a secret rebellion among human factions. At first, Rachel thought it was nonsense. But the more she read, the more she realized something was brewing beneath the surface. On Illyria 7, Daniel felt the pressure mounting. One day, during a heated negotiation about resource allocation, he watched as the Council dismissed a proposal from human delegates. The proposal suggested fairer distribution of rare minerals, which were essential for building ships and technology. Instead, the Council prioritized their own needs, leaving humans to fend for themselves. Daniel clenched his fists under the table, trying to keep calm. But inside, he was boiling with anger. After the meeting, Daniel met with Laura Hayes, a journalist known for her bold reports. She had uncovered evidence of corruption within the Council leadership, evidence that could change everything. Laura showed Daniel documents proving that the Council had been secretly siphoning resources from human colonies for years. "They've been using us," Laura said, her voice low but firm. "And they don't care what happens to us." Daniel knew this information was dangerous. If it got out, it could spark chaos across the galaxy. But keeping it hidden meant staying complicit in the Council's lies. He struggled with what to do next. Should he expose the truth and risk war? Or should he stay quiet and hope things would improve over time? Meanwhile, back on Earth, Rachel couldn't ignore the encrypted messages anymore. After decoding one of them, she discovered plans for a mass exodus, a movement called the Exodus Initiative. It was a bold idea. Leave the Council entirely and strike out on their own. Rachel hesitated. Could humanity survive without the Council's protection? And what would happen to those left behind? As days passed, the tension grew thicker. On Illyria 7, Daniel walked through crowded hallways filled with aliens of every shape and size. Some whispered about humanity's growing discontent. Others openly mocked them. Back on Earth, Rachel stared at her computer screen, unsure whether to join the rebellion or continue her work. Both siblings felt the weight of decisions that could alter the course of history. Little did they know, the choices they made in the coming weeks would set off a chain reaction that would shake the entire universe. For now, though, the storm was still gathering strength, waiting to break. Daniel Carter spent his days torn between frustration and fear. The Council's dismissive attitude toward humanity was becoming unbearable. He wanted to fight back, but he also knew the risks. If he acted too boldly, it could mean disaster for both him and his people. Still, something inside him refused to stay silent any longer. One evening, after another unproductive meeting, Daniel met Laura Hayes in a quiet corner of Illyria 7. She was waiting for him, her tablet glowing softly in the dim light. "I've got more," she said without preamble. Laura had been digging deeper into the Council's secrets, and what she found was worse than Daniel imagined. The corruption wasn't just about resources, it went far beyond that. There were records of illegal experiments conducted on human colonies, testing dangerous technologies without consent. Lives had been lost, and no one had been held accountable. Daniel felt sick as he scrolled through the files. How could the Council justify such atrocities? And why hadn't anyone spoken up before? "We can't let this stay hidden," he said finally, his voice trembling with anger. But exposing the truth came with its own dangers. The Council wouldn't take kindly to having their crimes aired publicly. It could mean war, or worse. Laura nodded, understanding the gravity of the situation. "If we play our cards right, we can turn this into something bigger," she suggested. "Other species are unhappy too. They're just scared to speak out. If humans make the first move, others might follow." Back on Earth, Rachel Monroe wrestled with her own dilemma. The encrypted messages kept coming, each one revealing more about the Exodus Initiative. She learned that it wasn't just a vague idea. It was already in motion. Ships were being prepared, routes planned, and supplies gathered. Leaders within the movement believed that leaving the Council was humanity's only chance for true freedom. Rachel admired their courage, but she couldn't shake the feeling of uncertainty. What if they failed? What if the Council retaliated? Her thoughts were interrupted when her lab assistant, Kevin, walked in holding a data drive. "You need to see this," he said urgently. On the drive was footage from a remote colony. The video showed Council enforcers confiscating food and medicine from human settlers, leaving them to starve. Rachel's hands shook as she watched. This was happening right now, while she sat safely in her lab. How could she ignore it? Rachel decided to act. She reached out to contacts within the rebellion, offering her expertise in terraforming technology. Her skills could help create sustainable environments on new planets, something crucial for survival outside the Council's reach. Though hesitant at first, the leaders agreed to bring her on board. Rachel packed her bags, leaving behind years of research to join the cause. As the days passed, Daniel grew bolder. With Laura's help, he began leaking small pieces of information to other diplomats. Whispers spread throughout Illyria 7, reaching not only humans, but also sympathetic aliens. Some listened, others turned away, unwilling to risk involvement. Yet every conversation brought Daniel closer to a tipping point. One night, as he stared out at the glittering expanse of stars, Daniel realized there was no turning back. Humanity's future depended on choices made now. Whether through exposure or rebellion, change was inevitable. Far away, Rachel felt the same determination as she boarded a transport ship bound for an unknown destination. Together, though separated by light years, brother and sister moved toward a shared goal: freedom. The Council remained oblivious to the storm brewing beneath its surface. For now, everything seemed calm. But cracks were forming, and soon they would widen into chasms. The galaxy stood on the brink of transformation, and humanity was ready to lead the charge. Daniel Carter spent his days torn between frustration and fear. The Council's dismissive attitude toward humanity was becoming unbearable. He wanted to fight back, but he also knew the risks. If he acted too boldly, it could mean disaster for both him and his people. Still, something inside him refused to stay silent any longer. The decision to leave the Council was not made lightly, but once it happened, there was no turning back. Humanity's departure sent shockwaves through the galaxy. Led by Jonathan Drake, a former admiral who had grown disillusioned with the Council's corruption, fleets of human ships began leaving Council-controlled space. The Exodus Initiative was no longer just an idea, it was reality. Jonathan Drake stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Freedom's Call *, watching as hundreds of vessels moved in formation. These ships carried families, scientists, engineers, and soldiers, all united by one goal: to build a new life away from the Council's control. For years, humanity had been treated like second-class citizens in the galactic community. Now, they were taking matters into their own hands. Jonathan felt a mix of pride and fear. He knew this journey would be dangerous, but staying under the Council's thumb was no longer an option. On Illyria 7, Daniel Carter watched the news with a heavy heart. Images of human ships streaming out of Council territory filled the screens. Alien diplomats shouted accusations, calling humanity reckless and selfish. Some even claimed the Exodus was an act of war. Daniel wanted to defend his people, but he couldn't reveal his growing ties to the rebellion. Instead, he kept quiet, listening carefully to every word spoken in the council chambers. His role as a double agent grew harder with each passing day. Rachel Monroe was already aboard one of the departing ships. She sat in a small cabin, staring at holographic maps of distant star systems. Her mind raced with possibilities. Where would they go? How would they survive? Rachel's terraforming technology gave her hope, but she knew survival depended on more than just science. They needed allies, species willing to stand with them against the Council's wrath. Back on Illyria 7, tensions escalated quickly. The Council demanded answers, accusing humanity of stealing resources before leaving. Daniel attended emergency meetings where tempers flared. Alien representatives pointed fingers, blaming humans for destabilizing the galaxy. "They think we're weak," Laura Hayes whispered to Daniel during a break. "But we're showing them we're stronger than they ever imagined." Laura continued publishing exposes, using the leaked documents to expose the Council's crimes. Her reports spread across the galaxy, reaching species who had long suffered under the Council's rule. Many began questioning whether the Council truly deserved their loyalty. Some even started considering joining humanity's cause. Meanwhile, the Council prepared to respond. Their leaders ordered blockades around human colonies still within their territory, cutting off supplies and communication. Skirmishes broke out along the borders as human ships tried to protect those left behind. Jonathan Drake led counterattacks, using clever tactics to outmaneuver the Council's forces. Though outnumbered, humanity fought with determination, proving they wouldn't back down easily. Rachel worked tirelessly aboard her ship, adapting her terraforming tech for defense. She created shields capable of repelling enemy attacks, giving human vessels a fighting chance. Her innovations became vital to the fleet's survival. Late at night, she thought about her brother, wondering if he was safe. She hoped Daniel would join them soon, but for now, she focused on doing her part. As the days turned into weeks, the galaxy held its breath. Humanity's bold move had sparked change, but uncertainty loomed large. Would other species rise up alongside them? Or would the Council crush the rebellion before it could grow? For Daniel, Rachel, and Jonathan, the stakes had never been higher. Each decision they made brought them closer to either triumph or disaster. Far away from the chaos, stars twinkled in the endless void of space. Humanity had taken its first step toward freedom, but the road ahead was fraught with challenges. The universe trembled, not just from the shock of humanity's departure, but from the promise of what might come next. Back on Illyria 7, tensions escalated quickly. The Council demanded answers, accusing humanity of stealing resources before leaving. Daniel attended emergency meetings where tempers flared. Alien representatives pointed fingers, blaming humans for destabilizing the galaxy. "They think we're weak," Laura Hayes whispered to Daniel during a break. "But we're showing them we're stronger than they ever imagined." Laura continued publishing exposes, using the leaked documents to expose the Council's crimes. Her reports spread across the galaxy, reaching species who had long suffered under the Council's rule. Many began questioning whether the Council truly deserved their loyalty. Some even started considering joining humanity's cause. Meanwhile, the Council prepared to respond. Their leaders ordered blockades around human colonies still within their territory, cutting off supplies and communication. Skirmishes broke out along the borders as human ships tried to protect those left behind. Jonathan Drake led counterattacks, using clever tactics to outmaneuver the Council's forces. Though outnumbered, humanity fought with determination, proving they wouldn't back down easily. Rachel worked tirelessly aboard her ship, adapting her terraforming tech for defense. She created shields capable of repelling enemy attacks, giving human vessels a fighting chance. Her innovations became vital to the fleet's survival. Late at night, she thought about her brother, wondering if he was safe. She hoped Daniel would join them soon. But for now, she focused on doing her part. As the days turned into weeks, the galaxy held its breath. Humanity's bold move had sparked change, but uncertainty loomed large. Would other species rise up alongside them? Or would the Council crush the rebellion before it could grow? For Daniel, Rachel, and Jonathan, the stakes had never been higher. Each decision they made brought them closer to either triumph or disaster. Far away from the chaos, stars twinkled in the endless void of space. Humanity had taken its first step toward freedom, but the road ahead was fraught with challenges. The universe trembled, not just from the shock of humanity's departure, but from the promise of what might come next. As humanity's ships disappeared into the vastness of space, the Council turned its attention to the worlds they left behind. Once bustling colonies filled with life and industry now stood eerily silent. These abandoned planets became symbols of humanity's defiance, but they also drew the curiosity of other species. Alien scavengers, eager to claim what remained, began arriving in droves. At first, it seemed like an easy opportunity. The Council had declared these territories open for exploration, dismissing them as worthless without human oversight. But those who ventured onto the deserted worlds quickly learned otherwise. Humanity hadn't left quietly. In their wake, they left traps, cleverly designed systems meant to deter intruders. Some scavenger ships triggered booby traps that disabled their engines. Others stumbled upon hidden caches of weapons, remnants of humanity's ingenuity. A few unlucky crews encountered self-destruct mechanisms, turning entire facilities into fiery graves. News of these dangers spread quickly among the galaxy's traders and opportunists. Many decided the risks weren't worth the reward. But for some, the abandoned colonies held more than just material wealth. They contained clues about humanity's plans. Among these explorers was Zora Venn, a reptilian strategist known for her sharp mind and cautious approach. Unlike most scavengers, Zora wasn't interested in profit. She wanted answers. Her people, the Krill, had long resented the Council's dominance, and she saw potential in aligning with humanity. Back on Earth, Rachel Monroe worked tirelessly aboard her ship, analyzing data sent back from the Exodus fleet. Reports of alien activity on the abandoned worlds troubled her. "They're testing us," she told Kevin, her assistant. "If we don't protect what we've left behind, they'll think we're weak." Together, they devised new strategies to safeguard the colonies, using automated drones and advanced surveillance systems. Though far away, Rachel refused to let humanity's hard work fall into enemy hands. Meanwhile, Laura Hayes continued her mission to expose the Council's corruption. Her latest report detailed how the Council had exploited human labor and resources for centuries. The article sparked outrage across the galaxy, especially among oppressed species who had endured similar treatment. Protests erupted on several worlds, with crowds chanting slogans inspired by humanity's rebellion. Laura knew she was striking a nerve. For too long, fear had kept dissenters silent. Now, humanity's example gave them courage. On Illyria 7, Daniel Carter struggled to maintain his cover. Rumors swirled about spies within the Council, and suspicion fell heavily on humans. Daniel attended meetings where heated debates raged over how to respond to the Exodus. Some Council members advocated for war, while others pushed for diplomacy. Daniel listened carefully, feeding information to Jonathan Drake whenever possible. It was a dangerous game, but he couldn't afford to stop now. Farther out in space, Jonathan led the Exodus fleet deeper into uncharted territory. His engineers worked around the clock to repair damaged ships and ration supplies. Morale fluctuated. Some settlers worried they'd made a mistake, while others remained fiercely hopeful. Jonathan reminded them daily why they had left, to escape oppression and build something better. He often thought of Rachel, wondering how she was holding up. Though separated, their shared goal kept him going. The Council's response grew harsher. Blockades tightened around remaining human colonies, cutting off vital resources. Skirmishes flared along the borders as both sides tested each other's strength. Jonathan's forces retaliated with precision strikes, targeting supply lines and communication hubs. Their success surprised even themselves, proving that humanity could hold its own against overwhelming odds. In the shadows of war, alliances began forming. Zaraven reached out to Jonathan through encrypted channels, offering support. Though wary at first, Jonathan agreed to meet. The Krill's knowledge of Council weaknesses proved invaluable, and their partnership marked the beginning of a broader coalition. Other species, emboldened by humanity's defiance, started defecting from the Council. As the galaxy watched, humanity's influence spread beyond its ships and colonies. What began as a desperate act of survival was becoming a movement, a spark igniting change across the stars. The Council's grip on power weakened with every passing day, and the universe trembled under the weight of shifting alliances. For Daniel, Rachel, and Jonathan, the fight was far from over, but one thing was clear. Humanity had already changed the course of history. The Council's patience finally ran out. What had started as blockades and skirmishes escalated into full-blown retaliation. Their forces launched targeted strikes against human outposts still scattered across the galaxy. These attacks were swift and brutal, designed to send a message. Humanity's rebellion would not go unpunished. For Jonathan Drake and his fleet, it was a grim reminder of what they were up against. Jonathan stood on the bridge of the Freedom's Call *, staring at the tactical display. Red blips marked Council ships advancing toward one of their last remaining colonies. He clenched his fists, knowing they couldn't afford to lose another outpost. "We fight, or we die," he muttered under his breath. His crew worked frantically around him, preparing for battle. The odds were against them. The Council's fleet was larger, better equipped, and more experienced. But Jonathan had something the Council didn't: determination. Back on Earth, Rachel Monroe received distress signals from the besieged colony. Her heart sank as she listened to the panicked voices of settlers pleading for help. She knew her terraforming technology could do more than reshape planets. It could protect them too. Working alongside Kevin, she adapted her designs to create energy barriers capable of withstanding heavy bombardment. The process was risky and time-consuming, but Rachel refused to give up. Every second counted. On Illyria 7, Daniel Carter walked a razor-thin line between loyalty and betrayal. The Council's leaders demanded answers about the human resistance, suspecting there was a mole feeding information to Jonathan's forces. Daniel played his part carefully, offering vague reassurances while secretly relaying critical intel. During one meeting, an alien diplomat accused him directly. "You're hiding something," the diplomat hissed. Daniel forced a calm smile, deflecting the accusation with practiced ease. Inside, though, his nerves were stretched thin. Laura Hayes continued publishing exposes, keeping the pressure on the Council. Her latest article revealed secret plans for a massive offensive aimed at wiping out humanity's fleet. The report caused outrage, even among species loyal to the Council. Public opinion shifted further in favor of humanity, with many questioning whether the Council's actions were justified. Laura's words became a rallying cry for those seeking change. She often thought of Daniel, wondering if he was safe. Though separated by light years, their goals remained aligned. When the Council's forces reached the human colony, they expected an easy victory. Instead, they found themselves facing unexpected resistance. Rachel's energy barriers held firm, repelling wave after wave of attacks. Jonathan's ships arrived just in time, launching a counteroffensive that caught the Council off guard. Using hit-and-run tactics, his pilots struck at weak points in the enemy formation, sowing chaos among their ranks. The battle raged for hours, but in the end, humanity emerged victorious. News of the win spread quickly through the fleet. Morale soared as settlers celebrated their hard-fought triumph. Jonathan addressed the crew over the ship's comm system. "They underestimated us," he said, his voice steady and strong. "But we showed them what we're made of. This is just the beginning." His words echoed through the corridors, reigniting hope among those who had doubted their chances. Rachel watched the aftermath from her ship, exhausted but proud. Her barriers had saved countless lives, proving that humanity's ingenuity could match any adversary. Kevin patted her shoulder, grinning. "You did it," he said simply. Rachel nodded, though she knew the fight was far from over. As the dust settled, Zara Van contacted Jonathan again. The Krill strategist offered reinforcements, eager to join the growing coalition. Other species followed suit, inspired by humanity's resilience. Together, they began planning their next move, a strike deep within Council territory. For Daniel, Rachel, and Jonathan, the stakes grew higher with each passing day. The Council's grip on power was slipping, but it wouldn't let go without a fight. In the vastness of space, stars twinkled like silent witnesses to the unfolding drama. Humanity had taken another step toward freedom, but the road ahead remained uncertain. One thing was clear: the universe would never be the same again. The victory at the human colony marked a turning point. Word of the triumph spread quickly, reaching far beyond the Exodus fleet. Other species, long oppressed by the Council's iron grip, began to take notice. Humanity's defiance inspired them to question their own loyalty to the corrupt system. Among these species were the Krill, led by Zara Van, who officially pledged their support to Jonathan Drake and his coalition. Zara traveled to the Freedom's Call to meet with Jonathan in person. Her presence aboard the ship was met with cautious optimism. The Krill were known for their tactical brilliance, and their alliance strengthened the coalition significantly. Together, they formed the Free Systems Alliance, FSA, a group dedicated to resisting the Council's tyranny and building a new future based on cooperation rather than domination. For the first time, humanity wasn't alone in its fight. Rachel Monroe worked tirelessly to integrate her terraforming technology into the FSA's defenses. She collaborated with Krill engineers, sharing ideas and adapting her designs to suit their needs. The energy barrier she had created became a cornerstone of the Alliance's strategy, providing protection for vulnerable colonies and ships. Kevin marveled at how Rachel's innovations brought different species together. "It's like your tech is speaking the universal language," he joked one day. Rachel smiled faintly, but didn't respond. Her focus remained on preparing for what lay ahead. On Illyria 7, Daniel Carter faced increasing scrutiny from the Council. Rumors of betrayal swirled around him, fueled by whispers of a mole within their ranks. Laura Hayes noticed the growing tension during their secret meetings. "You're walking a tightrope," she warned him. Daniel nodded grimly. He knew it was only a matter of time before someone uncovered his double life. Still, he continued feeding critical information to Jonathan, knowing it could mean the difference between victory and defeat. Laura's reports played a crucial role in rallying support for the FSA. Her exposes highlighted not only the Council's corruption, but also the bravery of those fighting against it. Images of human settlers defending their homes and Krill warriors standing shoulder to shoulder with them resonated across the galaxy. Public opinion shifted dramatically, with protests erupting on multiple worlds. Even some Council members began questioning whether the war against humanity was worth the cost. Despite this progress, tensions simmered within the FSA itself. Not all members trusted humanity's leadership. Some species worried that humans would repeat the same mistakes as the Council, imposing their will on others. Arguments broke out during strategy sessions, threatening to fracture the fragile coalition. Jonathan worked hard to keep the peace, emphasizing unity over division. "We're stronger together," he reminded them repeatedly. His calm demeanor earned him respect, but doubts lingered beneath the surface. Meanwhile, the Council prepared for another offensive. Their leaders refused to admit defeat, doubling down on efforts to crush the rebellion. Intelligence reports suggested they were amassing a massive fleet near the edge of Council-controlled space. Jonathan and Zara studied the data closely, devising plans to counter the threat. They decided to strike first, targeting key supply depots deep within enemy territory. It was a risky move, but one they believed necessary to weaken the Council's advantage. As preparations intensified, Rachel received a message from Earth. A small team of scientists had developed a prototype weapon capable of disabling Council ships without causing loss of life. Excited by the news, she urged Jonathan to incorporate the technology into their arsenal. "This could change everything," she said when they spoke over a secure channel. Jonathan agreed, ordering immediate testing of the new weapon. In the quiet moments between battles, Daniel reflected on how much had changed since the Exodus began. Once dismissed as insignificant, humanity now stood at the center of a galactic revolution. Laura joined him one evening, gazing at the stars visible through Illyria 7's transparent dome. "Do you think we'll win?" she asked softly. Daniel hesitated before answering. "I don't know," he admitted, "but I do know we're doing the right thing." Across the galaxy, alliances grew stronger while old systems crumbled. The Council's dominance wavered under the weight of dissent. Humanity, once seen as rebellious outsiders, emerged as pioneers of change. Though challenges remained, hope burned brighter than ever. The universe trembled, not with fear, but with anticipation of what might come next. The Free Systems Alliance, FSA, was gaining momentum, but betrayal struck when it was least expected. A mole within the coalition leaked sensitive information to the Council, revealing key details about upcoming operations. The Council acted swiftly, launching a surprise attack that caught the FSA off guard. Ships were destroyed, colonies damaged, and lives lost. It was a devastating blow, shaking the fragile trust holding the alliance together. Suspicion immediately fell on Daniel Carter. As a human diplomat still embedded in the Council, his dual role made him an easy target for blame. Jonathan Drake called an emergency meeting aboard the Freedom's Call *. Tensions ran high as representatives from various species demanded answers. "How do we know he's not the traitor?" one alien leader growled, pointing at Daniel. Jonathan hesitated, torn between loyalty to his old friend and the need to protect the alliance. Rachel watched silently via hologram, her expression unreadable. Daniel stood firm, denying any involvement in the leak. "I've risked everything for this cause," he said, his voice steady despite the weight of accusation. "If you doubt me, then find proof before passing judgment." His words did little to calm the room. Zara Venn stepped forward, her reptilian eyes narrowing. "We don't have time for arguments," she said sharply. "What matters now is finding the real traitor." Rachel took matters into her own hands. Using data analysis tools, she traced the source of the leak back to encrypted communications intercepted by the Council. She discovered anomalies in messages sent from a high-ranking official within the FSA, a Krill named Vorik, who had been vocal about his distrust of humans. Rachel shared her findings with Jonathan, who confronted Vorik during another heated meeting. Caught red-handed, Vorik confessed under pressure. He claimed the Council had threatened his family if he didn't cooperate. Though sympathetic to his plight, Jonathan couldn't ignore the damage caused by his actions. Vorik was exiled, stripped of his position. The betrayal fractured morale across the fleet. Trust, already fragile, became harder to rebuild. Some species considered leaving the alliance altogether, fearing further leaks would endanger their people. Jonathan worked tirelessly to reassure them, emphasizing the importance of unity. "We're stronger together," he reminded everyone. "Divided, we fall." Slowly, the coalition began to mend, though scars remained. Meanwhile, Laura Hayes published a report exposing Vorik's treachery and highlighting humanity's continued commitment to the alliance. Her article helped restore some faith in the FSA, showing that even mistakes could be addressed openly. Public opinion shifted slightly in favor of the rebellion, though skepticism lingered among certain factions. On Illyria 7, Daniel faced renewed danger. With his cover compromised, the Council tightened its surveillance around him. Laura urged him to flee, but Daniel refused. "I can still help from here," he insisted. "If I leave now, they'll know something's wrong." Instead, he doubled down on gathering intel, knowing every piece of information could save lives. Back aboard the Exodus fleet, Rachel focused on improving their defenses. The prototype weapon developed on Earth proved effective in disabling Council ships without casualties. She oversaw its deployment, ensuring it reached frontline units quickly. Kevin marveled at her dedication, often teasing her about taking breaks. "You're going to burn out if you keep this up," he warned. Rachel shrugged, too focused to care. For her, there was no time to rest, not while the war raged on. As the FSA regrouped, Jonathan led a daring raid on a Council supply depot. The operation succeeded, dealing a significant blow to the enemy's resources. Morale soared once again, proving that setbacks could be overcome with determination. Yet beneath the surface, tensions simmered. The road ahead remained uncertain, filled with challenges both external and internal. In the vastness of space, stars twinkled like silent witnesses to humanity's struggle. Each victory brought hope, but each betrayal reminded them of the cost of freedom. For Daniel, Rachel, and Jonathan, the fight was far from over. They pressed on, driven by the belief that a better future was worth every sacrifice. The Free Systems Alliance, FSA, needed a turning point, and Rachel Monroe's innovations provided just that. Using her advanced terraforming technology, she transformed a barren moon into a fortress unlike anything the galaxy had seen before. This stronghold, named Haven Prime, became the new base of operations for the Coalition. Its surface was covered in shimmering energy barriers that could withstand even the Council's most powerful weapons. Beneath the ground, sprawling bunkers housed command centers, repair docks, and supply depots. For the first time, the FSA had a secure place to regroup and plan their next moves. Jonathan Drake stood on the edge of Haven Prime, gazing at the glowing shields that protected their new home. He felt a surge of pride knowing what they had built together. "This changes everything," he said to Zara Venn, who stood beside him. The Krill strategist nodded, her sharp eyes scanning the horizon. "It gives us a chance to fight back properly," she replied. With Haven Prime as their anchor, the Alliance began preparing for a major offensive against the Council. Laura Hayes continued playing a crucial role in rallying support across the galaxy. Her reports highlighted not only the Council's failures, but also the resilience of the FSA. Images of Haven Prime spread quickly, inspiring hope among oppressed species. Many saw it as proof that humanity and its allies were capable of standing up to tyranny. Protests erupted on Council-controlled worlds, with crowds chanting slogans like "freedom or nothing." Laura's words painted a clear picture. The Council's days were numbered. On Illyria 7, Daniel Carter faced increasing danger as the Council grew suspicious of his activities. His access to classified information dwindled, forcing him to rely on scraps of intel gathered through careful observation. Despite the risks, he remained determined to help. One night, while reviewing encrypted files, he uncovered plans for a massive attack aimed at Haven Prime. Knowing the stakes, Daniel risked everything to send the information to Jonathan. When the message arrived, it came just in time. Rachel worked around the clock to fortify Haven Prime's defenses. She collaborated with engineers from multiple species, combining their expertise to create cutting-edge solutions. Kevin joked that she barely slept anymore, but Rachel didn't care. Every improvement brought them closer to victory. Her prototype weapon, now mass-produced, gave the FSA a decisive advantage in battles. Council ships found themselves disabled without warning, unable to retaliate effectively. The Council launched its assault on Haven Prime, confident in their ability to crush the rebellion once and for all. But they underestimated the strength of the Alliance. As their fleet approached, Jonathan ordered a strategic retreat, luring them into a trap. Hidden turrets emerged from beneath the moon's surface, firing volleys of energy blasts that crippled the Council's vanguard. Meanwhile, smaller FSA ships struck from behind, cutting off escape routes and causing chaos among the enemy ranks. The battle raged for hours, but the outcome was never in doubt. Thanks to Rachel's ingenuity and Jonathan's leadership, the FSA emerged victorious. The Council forces retreated, leaving behind damaged vessels and shattered morale. News of the triumph spread rapidly, further eroding the Council's authority. Species still loyal to the Council began questioning whether their allegiance was worth the cost. In the aftermath, Jonathan addressed the coalition over a secure channel. "Today, we showed them what happens when we stand united," he said, his voice firm and steady. "They thought they could break us, but they failed. We are stronger than ever." Cheers erupted across the fleet, echoing through ships and colonies alike. Back on Earth, Rachel watched footage of the battle, feeling a mix of relief and exhaustion. Kevin handed her a cup of coffee, grinning. "You did it again," he said proudly. Rachel managed a small smile, but knew the fight wasn't over yet. For Daniel, trapped on Illyria 7, the victory offered a glimmer of hope. He walked through the crowded streets, listening to whispers of dissent spreading among alien diplomats. The Council's grip on power was slipping. In the vastness of space, stars twinkled like silent witnesses to humanity's defiance. Each victory brought them closer to freedom, but challenges remained. For Daniel, Rachel, and Jonathan, the journey was far from finished. Yet one thing was certain. The universe trembled under the weight of change, and the Council's fall was no longer a distant dream. It was inevitable. The Council's collapse came faster than anyone expected. After the defeat at Haven Prime, cracks began to form in its once unshakable foundation. Species that had remained loyal started defecting in droves, unwilling to support a failing regime. Protests erupted on Council-controlled worlds, with citizens demanding accountability for years of corruption and oppression. The Council tried to negotiate peace, but their offers were seen as desperate attempts to cling to power. Jonathan Drake stood in the war room aboard the Freedom's Call *, reviewing reports from across the galaxy. "They're falling apart," he said to Zara Venn, who nodded in agreement. The Krill strategist leaned over the table, her sharp eyes scanning updates from Allied forces. "But they won't go quietly," she warned. "They'll try one last move to save face." Jonathan knew she was right. Even in defeat, the Council would fight to protect its legacy. Rachel Monroe worked tirelessly to ensure Haven Prime remained secure. Though the recent victory had boosted morale, she refused to let her guard down. Engineers continued upgrading the fortress's defenses, while scouts monitored enemy movements. Kevin marveled at her dedication, often joking that she ran on coffee and determination alone. "You need to rest sometime," he told her one evening. Rachel shook her head. "Not until this is over," she replied firmly. On Illyria 7, Daniel Carter faced his final test. With the Council's authority crumbling, paranoia swept through its ranks. Accusations flew freely, and Daniel found himself under constant surveillance. Laura Hayes helped him navigate the chaos, smuggling documents and keeping him informed about shifting alliances. Together, they uncovered evidence of atrocities committed by the Council's leaders, crimes so severe they shocked even those hardened by years of conflict. "This is it," Laura whispered as they reviewed the files. "This will finish them." The FSA convened an emergency summit to decide the Council's fate. Representatives from dozens of species gathered aboard Haven Prime, united by a shared desire for justice. Jonathan addressed the assembly, urging restraint. "We must hold them accountable, but we cannot repeat their mistakes," he said. "Punishment should fit the crime." His words resonated deeply, earning nods of approval from many delegates. As the Council's remaining leaders pleaded for mercy, Rachel presented her case against them. Using data collected over months, she exposed how the Council had exploited weaker species, drained resources, and silenced dissent. Her presentation left no room for doubt. The Council's actions had caused immeasurable suffering. When she finished speaking, silence filled the chamber. Slowly, applause broke out, growing louder until it echoed through every corner of Haven Prime. In the end, the Council was dissolved, its members stripped of power and placed under trial. Some argued for harsher punishments, but Jonathan insisted on fairness. "We are better than them," he reminded everyone. "Let history judge their crimes." With the Council gone, the galaxy entered a new era. Jonathan emerged as a reluctant figurehead for the Free Systems Alliance, advocating for cooperation rather than domination. Rachel returned to Earth, where she resumed her work on terraforming technology, ensuring its benefits reached all corners of the galaxy. Daniel finally stepped out of the shadows, leaving diplomacy behind to document the lessons learned during humanity's rebellion. Laura published her final expose, chronicling the rise and fall of the Council. Her book became a bestseller, inspiring generations to come. As she wrote the last chapter, she reflected on how far they had come. Humanity, once dismissed as insignificant, had sparked a revolution that changed the course of history. Across the stars, hope replaced fear. The universe trembled no longer with dread, but with the promise of a brighter future. For Daniel, Rachel, and Jonathan, the journey had been long and difficult, but worth every sacrifice. They had proven that even in the darkest times, courage and unity could light the way forward. Years passed, and the galaxy transformed in ways no one could have predicted. The Council's collapse marked the beginning of a new era, an age of cooperation and mutual respect among species. Humanity, once seen as rebellious outsiders, became respected leaders in shaping this brighter future. The Free Systems Alliance, FSA, grew stronger, its members united by shared goals rather than forced obedience. Jonathan Drake stood on the observation deck of Haven Prime, now a bustling hub of activity. Ships from countless species came and went, bringing goods, ideas, and stories. He watched as families walked through the corridors, their laughter echoing off the walls. Children played games that blended traditions from different cultures, proof that unity wasn't just an ideal, it was becoming reality. Jonathan smiled faintly, knowing how far they had come since the days of fear and oppression. Rachel Monroe returned to Earth, but her work never truly ended. She continued refining her terraforming technology, adapting it to heal planets damaged by centuries of exploitation. Her innovations turned barren wastelands into thriving ecosystems, giving life where none had existed before. Kevin stayed by her side, often teasing her about taking breaks, though he knew she wouldn't listen. Together, they traveled across the galaxy, leaving behind green worlds and hopeful settlers. For Rachel, each success felt like redemption, not just for humanity, but for all those who had suffered under the Council's rule. On Illyria 7, Daniel Carter found peace in writing. After stepping away from diplomacy, he dedicated himself to documenting the rebellion and its aftermath. His book, titled A New Dawn told the story of humanity's fight for freedom and the coalition's rise against tyranny. It became required reading for diplomats and historians alike, ensuring the lessons of the past wouldn't be forgotten. Laura Hayes visited him often, sharing stories from her travels as a journalist. "You've changed history," she told him one evening. Daniel shook his head modestly. "We all did," he replied. Laura's reports continued inspiring change. She focused on highlighting acts of kindness and collaboration among species, showing that progress was possible even after years of conflict. Her articles reminded readers that the galaxy was still healing, urging patience and understanding. When asked why she kept going, she simply said, "Because hope needs voices." As time passed, Haven Prime evolved into more than just a fortress. It became a symbol of what could be achieved when differences were set aside for the greater good. Schools taught children about the rebellion, not as a tale of war, but as a lesson in courage and resilience. Artists painted murals depicting key moments: the Exodus fleet, the battle at Haven Prime, and the day the Council fell. Music celebrated unity, blending melodies from dozens of cultures into harmonies that resonated across stars. Jonathan eventually stepped down from leadership, passing the torch to a new generation eager to build on what had been started. He retired to a quiet colony world, spending his days tending gardens and watching sunsets. Zara Van remained a close ally, her people thriving thanks to partnerships forged during the rebellion. Together, they reflected on how much had changed and how much still lay ahead. One night, Daniel visited Haven Prime for the first time in years. As he walked through its glowing streets, he felt pride swell in his chest. Humanity's journey hadn't been easy, but it had been worth every step. Near the edge of the settlement, he paused to gaze at the stars. Somewhere out there, Rachel was working to create another world, and Laura was telling another story. They were scattered across the galaxy, yet connected by a shared dream. The universe no longer trembled with fear. It pulsed with possibility. Humanity's greatest strength, Daniel realized, wasn't in conquest or rebellion. It was in its ability to connect, to inspire, and to forge bonds even in the darkest times. And as long as those bonds endured, the galaxy would continue moving toward a brighter tomorrow.